nature. In the early stages, the very first thing, the first thing I can remember was the gift from my mother's sister brought up from the Mississippi River. It's a seed pod, and of course they knew that at that time that I was interested in this thing. It was back in the late 90s that this was, she brought this to me, and I guess I had quite a collection. I know that it was only 2 or 3 years after that my bird egg collection dates back to 1904, and I had the collection of quite a good collection of birds' eggs at that time.
And how did you get started on the museum? When did you start building that?
Well, that's another thing. I had a little collection, and I had a place to put it. From the time that I can remember, when I was even 14 or 15 years old, my folks let me have a little room that put my collections in. They were pretty simple, not much to them, but I was collected practically all of my life. And coming in to Montana, I had quite a collection to start with. That was when I was 20 years old, 1910. Another question?
Yeah, could you tell us something about the museum?
Right now?
Yeah.
It's in very good hands right now. It's made its last move, I hope. And I think it's in very well situated, and I think I'm going to enjoy it more than I ever have in all my life, because it's always been in crowded quarters. Here I have room to put stuff out where it belongs and put it in order, and it's being used constantly.
And, well, we want to start off with the shells. Could you tell us about your seashells?
Well, the very first, I looked it up the other day to see what time of the period that particular woman was in Dickens' eye when I was going to Sunday school, and it was back in 1904 or 5, and it had to be at that time because that's when they had that pulpit there, and she gave me as a prize an abalone shell. It was about a cup full of coquina shells in that shell. That was my first shells. Of course, we lived in western Iowa. We didn't see any seashells then. But that was really my first shells right then. But I've always been interested in them. The big shot in the arm on the seashells, I collected them along with everything else. But in 1951, just 20 years ago, I had a letter from a man in Dunedin, New Zealand. I never heard of him and haven't the slightest idea why, but I had a letter, and he said, I'm sending you a box of shells, about 18 different kinds, collected on the southeast coast of South Island, New Zealand. He said, I'm a skipper of a deep sea trawler. Well, then he went on and wrote an interesting letter, a couple of pages, and then wound up by saying that he got a 1950 directory of chemicologists by John Q. Birch of California. He said, I had a look through it and picked your name out by chance. Hope you receive the shells okay, Captain John Black. And that was a real lift in the shell collecting.
When people come to see your museum, which do you usually show first?
Well, I usually ask them if they have some particular preference in the to look at, but otherwise we are being able to do something here that I never was before any place I've ever had the museum, because we have room and we've got it arranged so that we start out with the sea life and the gastropods and the cases on the end, and the pelecypods in the case in front, and we hope to have more cases for more shells. But it's all together, all the whole bunch of the water life, and then we go on from that to the minerals, and the minerals are all in one section, and that's it.
What about your arrowheads and things like that?
The whole science of archaeology as represented here in the museum is all on the west wall. Everything there. Even the pictures up there are all Russell's pictures of Indian life, and see, there's 4 sections of the point arrowheads, and there's 18 in each one of those, and they're all on the west wall, and 4 larger cases there. So the reason we put those Russell, Russell is the only artist that we have in the museum at all. I like his work, and he's a native, so we restricted it, and we put all of the pictures of Indian life and everything that connected with the Indians, just because it kind of fit in with the rest of the archaeology exhibits. One with right up in the foreground here, crossing the Missouri River.
Which classifications of science is art represented under?
Well, I think art could be studied from the Russell prints and Ed Green carving. I imagine that would come under art. But they do have available half a dozen different sciences, starting with conchology, that's shells, and in that same section there's a few examples of zoology, that's the bird's egg, and ornithology, that's a few mounted birds you have, and then there's a collection of butterflies and bugs, that's entomology, and move on to that to the mineralogy, and that's, in a couple of cases there are the products of the lapidary, so show the lapidarist work, that's with polystones, and then jump over here at the center to the paleontology, and there's quite a little paleontology represented under the artifacts. And then anthropology, I guess, I'm a little hazy about this, I think you'd call the study of man under those artifacts from China, Korea, India, Mexico, South Africa, and the South Seas. I think that would come under anthropology, another science. And then you get to archaeology. That's nearly everything on the west wall takes in archaeology. I nearly forgot 2 items that I first became interested in. That's Flatway, stamp collecting, and numismatics, coins. I'm not a big collection, but I have 200 or 300 here. You want to hold that up there?
Well, this coin collection, how many countries does it represent?
Well, in this folder, there's 144 countries, 144 different coins, and most of them have what they're worth in the United States money. It makes it kind of interesting, and that's it.
Then none of these foreign countries have, their money is not worth as much or more than our money is.
I'm not much of a student of numismatics. I just collected just to have a variety of coins from as many countries as I could get, and the values in the present day, ordinarily a coin about the size of our $half, in quite a lot of cases is only worth about half, although Cuba $half is worth more than our $half. There's one coin that I was rather impressed about, is from Chile. It's it's a 10 peso piece, a little piece of aluminum, and peso is the ordinary South American dollar, and it takes 10 of these to make one of these condors. And in our money, that's worth 1 7/10 of a cent. We've just been about the coins, and that's a very, very small part of my collection. It's just a sideline, sort of. I have collected quite a lot of minerals, have a good selection. Have you any questions about these minerals?
Yeah, what are those ones in the bottom shelf, 29?
Well, these in the bottom are common iron concretions found all over Powder River County. They break them open, and they're almost like iron. There's no value. They're just concretions. And on the next section is mostly crystals from all over the world. Here's one that's quite interesting. It looks like velvet, and it had to be shipped in a box and wired 4 different ways because those little needles, little crystals, are so fine that you could just rub them off like hair. They're so fine, the crystals are.